Okay, so hey everyone, it's Mercedes here. I'm gonna do question two. Your excitements about learning the information that you had not seen before or didn't understand. So chapter one was basically the fundamental concepts of motor development themselves, and Dr. Guerrero started off with the picture of the motor and the engine and stuff. And I don't know, I just sort of really related to that because sometimes I work on cars, so I was like, oh, I know what a motor is, but applying it to motor development itself is like something way different. So I thought that was neat how he did that. Anyway, well, stuff that I knew already were like the axon, the dendrites, like the sciencey stuff about it. Like the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, automatic, somatic. I knew that. One thing, there's a couple things that were new to me. So like motor, I learned like the actual definition of motor development. So developmental changes and movements and factors underlining those changes. So like your different milestones in your life. And then I also learned like the motor learning, the motor behavior, motor control. They all start with motor, but they mean absolutely different things. Motor learning is from your training and your experience, all your practice. Your behavior is the 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 combo of how you developing it and learning it logically, and then your control is how well skilled, coordinated you are to do that movement, that motion, that one-handed football catch. So that was pretty new to me. Another new thing was that Carl Newell model thing. So movements arise from interactions of like the individual, the environment, or the task, and those were new things to me. Oh, sorry. And then there was like the individual constraints, environmental constraints, and then task constraints, and those were all new to me. So moving along, chapter two, chapter two was like completely new to me. I didn't know anything that was in chapter two, or like I hadn't heard it before. So it talked about like the theoretical perspectives in motor development. So then we had some history in the beginning, so the maturation perspective, informational processing perspective, and the ecological perspective. And then those were all pretty new to me. Always learning them. And there was like that co-twin study. I found that very like interesting. That was cool to learn about. So this was mostly like the history of the stuff, of those three things: the environmental, the task, ecological, maturational. So then chapter three was more the principles, so Newton's laws of motion. And I know those pretty well, but applying them to motor development was something that I hadn't learned before. So that was interesting to learn how you can apply Newton's laws to motor development. So like Newton's first law, an object of motion stays in motion unless acted upon an opposite force. So like in football, the wide receiver is running, and he's gonna stay in motion until what are the blocker, defense? I have no idea. I don't know football, but they come and they like tackle him. He stopped him. He got him out of motion. So that was the opposite force that stopped the wide receiver from in the motion. So I thought that was a really cool way to look at Newton's laws that I hadn't looked at before. And then just learning how like progressing through life, you do these stages, like the milestones of your movements themselves. Like you have to teach yourself how to ride. That's movement. in a sports, you gotta learn the movements correctly. I mean, you can do the movements, but you need to learn them correctly to not hurt yourself. That was interesting to learn, but I really like learning about how you can apply Newton's laws in motor development. That was the big thing that I got out of chapter 3. That was the most interesting part to me, out of that. So yeah, that's a sum of what I was excited for, or like what I found most interesting and stuff that I had not seen before. There wasn't really anything that I understood, because I understood how it applied to motor development. There was just stuff that I was like, oh, really? You can apply it to motor development? But other than that, it was a pretty good first 3 chapters. So we'll see what all the other chapters have in store. So goodbye, everyone.